Hi everyone, today's topic is adding, subtracting, and multiplying radical expressions. Objective number 1, adding and subtracting like radicals. Like radicals is radical expression with identical radicands and identical root. And the procedure, add like radicals. To add or subtract like radicals, add or subtract the coefficient and leave the radical part the same. The roots have to be the same. The radical, the number inside, also have to be the same. So this has to be the same. That's the way you can add them. Same thing as x. This is pretend this is a x. This is also x. They have to be exactly the same. This is x and that's y, which is not the same. You cannot add them. And then when there's any other x or variable, all those has to be the same. Number is the only thing can be different. Those are called the coefficient. To start off, example number 1a, if you have the 5 right here is the same, and because they are the same, you can combine them, and that is going to be equal to just 7 root 5. Nothing changed. The root 5 and the root 5 stay the same. You guys go ahead, try B. So for example number 2, the root is 4 root of 3. This is 4 root of 3. So those roots is the same. The radicand inside the number is the same. So I'm just going to deal with the number. Now don't forget, please don't forget, use your sign. The number follow the sign. So this is a positive 5. The number follow the sign. Be a negative 7. Be a negative 2. 4th root of 3. For letter C, we need to take a look. Now we are looking at the radicand. Inside the radicals, is it going to be the same? Index number is 4. Then we have one more thing we need to check. We need to check the x. They both are x. That is okay. If one of them is x squared, the other one just an x on the outside, you still cannot add them. They have to be exactly the same before you put number in front of it. That's just going to be 6 minus 2. That's going to be 4x, 4th root of 3x. And that's your answer for letter C. I want to also look at letter D before I let you guys try some of your own. Letter D is now having different ones. This is your x and that's your y. Can you add them together? No. But this is going to be your x and that's going to be your y. Nothing else. The radical is the same between this one. If you cut it up like how I used to show, then you can see it's going to have the same radical with the third one. So I can just do 3 root 3. Then I have the next one, which is 6 and 3 plus 9 root 2. So now I would like you guys to try the examples for E and F. So if you take a look at E, everything else is the same. 4th root of 5x squared. Same thing with the second one. But the only difference is you have to realize that's 1. And because that's 1, 5 plus 1, that's how you get 6. Next one, I marked them. Which one has double line gets combined. Which one has single line. 9x minus 6x. X both have the same exponent. So therefore 9 minus 6 is going to be 3. The other set, which is going to be negative 2y and positive 7y, positive 5y, root 3y. Notice none of the roots changed. Example number 2. What happens if you have unlike radicals? Well, now we're going to double check. Can we break down all the radicals? Example 2a is all the knowledge from previous section. So you know square root of 3 you cannot break down anymore. But if you have a square root of 12, you know you can do 12 and you do 2, 6, 2, and 3. And then since you have a square root 7, square root of 3 plus a 2 square root of 3. Now because you notice the roots is the same, you can combine them. That's 7 right here plus 2. Positive 7, positive 2. Please make sure you understand what's the sign for the numbers. So that's going to be 9 root 3. That's A. Now B is also same thing. You notice they are not the same. One of them is 24. The other one is going to be 54. So we are going to break it down in section 10.3. I'm going to pause, break down the square root of 24 and break down the square root of 54. So do the two problems first and then we're going to combine them. So pause the video, try your best. You've done this both before. Do it like 2 little problems. Example 2b, we broke down the 24 right here and you guys follow the process like we have done it for 3 sections now. for like quite a few days. We got a pair out because the number here is 2, and then 2 and 3 is right here. The 2 comes out as a pair right here, and the 4 is just from whatever I have, I bring it down. So 4 times 2 that comes out, whatever is left inside, 2 times 3 is right here. Then the next one is the 6, -6 right here, I bring it down, and the 3 and 3 gives me a pair right here, and the 2 and the 3 is inside the radical. So now what you're going to do is you just combine 2 times 3, simple 5 is 8, 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 3, that's a -18, 2 times 3, a 6. Notice the radical is exactly the same, and because they're exactly the same, therefore you can combine them, and that's gonna be the -10 square root 6, because that's 8, that's the coefficient, 8 minus 18, that's your coefficient of -10. I would like you guys to try C, D, and E, because they are exactly the same thing. We've been doing it for the past couple days. So go ahead, try C, D, E, and F to break it down. We are going to just try C, E, and G. If you guys choose to do D, F, H, I'll give you extra credit for it, but I will not tell you the answers. So you guys have to work it out and see and check in with me. And if you did it, I will add more points onto your paperwork. So go ahead, try C, E, and G, and then we're gonna talk about it. So to try out letter C, the answer is 4 cube root of 3. I broke down to 24, and I noticed my index is number 3. So I need 3 of the same thing, and that's gonna be 2. And this 3 come down here. So making sure that you guys can see that. So this 3 comes down here, this 2 comes down here, this 3 goes in here, and that's where all the numbers coming from. And there's the cube root. Cannot forget this cube. If you don't put it down correctly, that means you didn't get the problem correctly. It's like you're missing an x, so you cannot do that. Copy down, because the next thing, we don't have anything I can broken down, so this is come down just 2 cube root of 3. And then because it's 6 and minus the 2, 6 minus 2 is 4 cube root of 3. None of them can missing a piece, because if you don't put down everything correctly, it's going to be not correct, because it's like missing an x or missing a y. So that's not going to be correct. Be careful with every single piece you bring it down. So that's C. So for letter E, we do the same thing. I broke it down, which is I have 48, and then I put down all the numbers. And since it's a square root, because there's no index number, is 2 of the same. And so this is going to be the first group. This is going to be the second 2. And I also broke down the x. One of the x is out here, and one of them is inside. And you also do it the same way for 12. So 12 is going to be broken down with 2 and 2 and 3. So 2 goes outside, right at the outside right here. Then the 3 is left inside, and the x is going to be the x. This one is outside, this is outside, and this one is inside. Hopefully that helps. When you combine them, 2 times 2 is going to be 4, and the x is just right here, 3x. 2x 3 times square root of 3x. So because the x square root of 3x and x square root of 3x is going to be the same right here, we can combine them. So again, it's going to be 4 and positive 2, and I give you 6. I hope that making sense. And the same thing for the next one. And I tried not to draw it so you guys can see it, but this time is a group of 4. So 4 2's first of all right here, and same thing with the x. 4 3's right here. 2 pairs, x squared, and this should be x squared, 4th root of 2x. Now because notice there is an x squared and there is none, we cannot combine them, and the answer is just, it's going to be 6 4th root 2x 3x squared 4th root 2x, because they are not the same right here. Okay, so that's your answer, because they are not the same. Going on to objective number 2, use the distribute property in expressions that contain radicals. So what we're going to do is just the same things like the distribute property. Now I'm going to write it out the first problem for you. So for letter A, the problem really is square root 3 times square root 3. So it's going to be this one times this one, then this one times this one. So it's going to be plus square root 3 times square root of 15. subtracting. Now what you're going to have is you should recognize square root 3 and times square root 3, they are the same exact thing. So that can be 3, or if you want me to write it out, square root 9 plus square root 15. Oh, I'm sorry, square root 45. And you can break it down. That's going to be 3 plus square root 45. Put the 45 on the side. That's going to be 5. And divide by 5. That's going to give you 9 and 3 and 3. So that will give you a pair of 3. And that's going to be 3 root 5. And because they don't have anything they have in common, the answer will be 3 plus 3 root 5. Now if you say, Miss Wiesman, can I just go from root 3 right here times root 3 because I recognize that's 3. If you want to go from that step, skip the square root 9 and go right to 3. You are totally okay with, I'm totally okay with it. Or if you recognize this square root 3 times square root 15 is square root 3 times square root 5, and you recognize there's a pair of 3 that comes out, that's totally okay. But you can definitely break it down as square root 45. So there's 2 ways of doing it, and that's example 8. Example 3, letter A. Let's go on to example 3, letter B. And let's do it again. So that's going to be 2 square root 6. Let's put some parentheses around it because sometimes you get confused. That's okay too. Plus 2 root 6 times 5 root 5. Now notice I'm starting to put my problems together with parentheses. Just make it easier and clear to myself instead of sometimes putting the dots. It might be too small. It might be done the wrong way. It might look like a negative sign. So parentheses probably is the easiest, at least for me. So now we simplify. Since I don't have a square root 6 on the 3, I'm just going to multiply the outside. So it's just 6 root 6 plus 2 times 5 because they're outside and we done that. That becomes 6. I'm sorry, 2 times 5 is 10, and that's root 30. And because they are the roots underneath is not the same. One of them 6, the other one is square root 30, and we cannot break it down. That will be my answer for this problem. There's no perfect square root under square root 30. And you might ask, why? How do I know that? Well, I recognize there's a 5. I recognize 6 is 2 times 3. There's absolutely no pairs. So I know square root 30 is not going to have a pair available as a factors that can be broken down. So that's answer for example 3, letter B. For example letter C, we are going to do the same thing again, distribute them. Don't forget your sign. So start off with the parenthesis, 2 square root 10 times square root of 5 minus 2 square root 10 times 3 square root of 6. And when you distribute them, I notice that's 2 square root of 50 minus 2 times 3 is going to give you 6 square root of 60. Then I'm going to break down the 50 because I noticed there's a pair of 5s in there. So 50 is going to be 2, 25, and that's going to be 5 and 5, a pair. And 60 is going to be, divide by 2, 30, and 2, 15, 3, and 5, a pair of 2. So when I write them out, it's going to be 2 times 5 root 2 minus 6 times 2 root 15. Then if I combine them, that's going to be just 10 root 2 minus 12 root 15. Now if you look at the numbers underneath the square root right here, they're not the same. So therefore that's my answer. And I would like you guys to try D yourself. For example, letter D, I just distribute 5, square root 5 times square root 75 and square root 5 times square root 15 and working through it, and the answer when you multiply is those two equals square root of 375 and 5 times square root 15, square root 5 times square root 15 give me square root 75. When you break it down, that's a 5, a pair of 5 came out. 5 and 3 give you 15. 5 came out. For the second one, only 3 is left. Again, their roots are not the same, so therefore there's nothing you can do to combine them. So now for letter E, notice the difference between A, B, and C. A, B, and C, and D, they all have just one term in front of it. Now we have a binomial times a binomial. So again, this is the FOIL if you guys want to call it, or just take the first term times both of the second, and take the second times the second, and the second everything in the second parenthesis. So let's write them out, and the answer is for the first one is going to be just 2 root 5 and minus 2 root 6. Then the purple one is going to be just negative 3 positive times a positive root 5. Positive root 3, positive root 5. That give you positive root 15. And next one is positive root 3 times positive root 6. It's going to be minus root 18. Now, the only thing, if you look at it, the problem that's 5 cannot break down, 6 cannot break down, 15 is 3 times 5, no pairs. But 18, I can break it down. So because that proper rule is we cannot have perfect square inside a root. So if you break down 18, that's going to be 2, 9, 3, 3. And therefore, a pair of 3 comes out. So to simplify this a little bit better, it's 2 root 5 minus 2 root 6 plus root 15 and minus 3 root 2. And because they have nothing else in common, there's my answer. That's letter E. F, G, and H. For letter F, what we are going to have to do is, because it has 2 parentheses, we're going to take the first term times the first term in the second parenthesis, first term times second, and then we're going to do the purple one, which is the first one, the second term times the second parenthesis, first term, second term. That's all. I mean, it's just pretty much you take the very first one times everybody in the second, take the second one times everybody in the second parenthesis, and then so forth. And so in that case, it will work for all the parentheses. So now what you have here is 3x, 3 root x times 2 root x, 3 times 2, 6. X times x, x squared. Then you have 3x, 3 root x times negative 5 root y. So 3 times negative 5, negative 15. X times y, nothing you can do, xy. And I do it again. Positive y, root y, and positive 2 root x, 2 xy, x times y. Then you do the last one, positive y, root y, times the negative 5 root y. So y times y, y squared. 5 is just outside. Notice I always have my signs. I always say the signs to myself. Positive times a negative 5. That gives me negative 5. Then we're going to combine like terms. Right here, I notice I can simplify x squared, and square root of x squared is x. This is a negative 15 root xy, and this is a positive 2 root xy. So root xy and root xy, the same thing. Combine them, negative 15 and negative 2y is going to give you a negative 13. Then you have 5 root y squared, square root, and 2 cancel out, so that comes out. So that's going to be minus 5y, and that is your answer. Wait, letter F. So for letter G, we are doing the same thing. 4 times 4, 16. 4 times, positive 4 times negative 10, negative 4 to the 10th power. Positive root 10 times 4, positive 4 root 10. Root 10 times root 10, root 100. Sign, positive, negative, negative. So now when you combine like terms, it's going to be negative 4 root 10, positive 4 root 10, root 10, root 10, the same. That's gone. Root 100 is going to be 10. So now we have whole numbers. 16 minus 10, 6. That's G. Have something that's a square on the parenthesis. Remember, that's 2 of them. I need you to write that step down. Don't just assume you're going to remember. Write them down. And when you write them down, you do the same thing what we have done for 3 problems. 5 times 5, 25. 5 times a positive root 3, positive root 3. Positive root 3 times 5, positive 5 root 3. Root 3 times root 3, root 9. Positive again, right there. Then simplify. 25 plus 5 root 3 plus 5 root 3. Those are the same. Root 3 is the same, so therefore become 10 root 3. Root 9 is a positive root, positive 3. So in that case, 25 positive plus positive 3 is going to be 28. 10 root 3. You already combine them. So that will be the answer for H. Now this problem that we kind of did it before. Remember what's in conjuncture? Conjuncture, it means one positive, one negative. And this is really cool because you got to remember there's a lot of rules that if you have the same thing multiply, something happen. Notice the 2 is the same. Notice the root 3 and the root 3 is the same. One positive, one negative. Do you guys remember that when we have x squared minus y squared, and somehow you just get one positive, one negative? This is the same idea. So what happened based on that rule, you know this is going to be x plus y, x minus y. Now I want to leave that rule there. Okay? The reason for that is eventually I hope you can see a pattern. So let's multiply it out. If you take root 2 times 2, that's going to give you 4. And if you take 2 times negative root 3, it's going to be negative 2 root 3. Then if you're going to take positive 3 root 3 times positive 2, that's going to be positive 2 root 3. Then you have a positive root 3 times a negative root 3. That's going to be a negative root 9. Now, I want you guys to note as you start simplify them. This is 4. The first one doesn't change. Okay. Then the next two actually cancel each other out. One is negative, one is positive. It's gone. Then you notice root 9 is actually 3. Answer is 1 when you simplify everything. Okay. Now I want you guys to stop and think about the rule. I just put it down right here. Now look at this. We have the same thing right here. X plus y, x minus y. And the really thing they told you is just take the first term squared minus sign, right here, minus sign, the second term squared. All right, let's take a look. If I really do it that way based on the equation or whatever the formula tells you, if you look at it, let's do it in orange. If the problem is 2 plus root 3 and 2 minus root 3, and the formula tells me, okay, the first term, which is 2 squared, minus the second term. What's the second term? Well, the second term is root 3 squared, which is a shortcut here. That's really just 4. We learned that before. 2 times 2 is 4. Root 2, right here, this guy, root 2 and square cancel each other out. If you guys can remember that, this problem is so easy. 1. Done. You should be able to say, 2 squared is 4. Root 3, just 3. 1. There's your answer. Try example B and C using the shortcut. If you want to multiply it out using the long way, you are more than welcome to. But I'm going to show you the shortcut. Okay, for letter B, I write it out for you guys, following the same formula, first term square minus second term square. So based on that, I wrote it down, root 5 square. And then the next one, I have 3 root 3 square. That's the second term, that's the first term. Then I write the terms twice so you guys can see. So that's root 5 times root 5. Second one is minus sign, still stays the same. 3 root 3 times 3 root 3. That's twice. So root 5, you guys should know that's a 5. Because square root 25 is 5. And then 3 times 3 gives you 9. And root 3 comes out as 3. And that's just going to be 5 minus 27. 9 times 3 is 27, order of operation. And that's going to be negative 22. And I think that second way is much easier, so you don't have to think about the numbers as much. So letter C right here is the same thing. I wrote it down twice right here. And I wrote them 3 root 5, 3 root 5. That's going to be 3 times 3, 9. Root 5, 5. 2 times 2, 4. Root 6 give you 6. 45 minus 24, 21. That would be your answer. And that's letter C. As time goes on, problem's going to get harder. Now, why am I insist getting here? I see this on the SAT and ACT before, so that's why I want to give you guys introduction on it, and maybe when you look at it, it will not be looking so foreign for you. So in this case, again, simplify radical expression that contain mixed operations. Mixed operations means that I have multiplying, I have adding, or I have subtracting. I have to break it down. I have all the rules that I have been showing you throughout, and you have to know how to simplify them. And so in this case, again, order of operation, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, is going to come into play. So when you have multiplying and addition together, you are going to take care of your multiplication first. So in this case, that's going to be those two. And then we're going to break it down and see where we are at. I'm going to pause and write them down, and then I'll explain. So for the next section, simplify and radical expression that contain mixed operation, we have letter A right here. 2 root 2 times root 10, that will give me root 20. And then plus root 3 times root 15 gives me root 45. And the reason I did that first is because order of operation, I take care of the multiplication part first. Then I break down root 20, which is you guys done before. Break it down, which is going to be 2 root 5. And break down the root 45 is going to be 3 root 5. And notice I have the root 5 and the root 5. And so therefore, coefficient gets added. So therefore, it's 5. And that is letter A. Now the rest of them is putting, please do letter B, and we'll come back and take a look at your answer. For example, letter B, I multiply the numbers inside the square root. So that will be square root 18. So 2 square root 18. I multiply 4 square root 7 and square root 14. That give me 4 square root 98. I break it down, and then 3 comes out right here. But I also have a 2 right here. Please do not forget it. I'm going to draw it out for you. And then I also have the next one, which is for 4 right here. And then I have a 7 right there. So I don't want you guys to forget whatever the number is on top. And then because of that, I make sure that I multiply. Once I break it down, I multiply 2 and 3 right here. I multiply 4 and 7, that's 28 and 6. Because the root is the same, I can combine the coefficient, which becomes 34 root 2. And that's letter B. See before, from previous things, previous section, I told you guys if there's a fraction and there's a square root on the bottom that you cannot break down, please take a look. Maybe there's a cancellation we can do. So this, you can look at it as square root of 54 over 3, and then we are going to break it down, divide. So 54 divided by 18, and plus square root of 32, and you should have no problem breaking them down. I'm gonna pause it. Please do finish the problem. Letter C, what I did is I divided by 54 by 3 because there's no way I can break that down. And I got lucky, I got root 18. Now, once I have root 18, I know I can break it down. That's 3 root 2. And I also have a root 32, which is, we know how to break it down. That's a pair of 2's. That become 2 times 2 become 4 root 2. And because the root 2 and the root 2, I know I can combine them. 3 plus 4 equal 7 root 2. So that's letter C. And please try letter D, and I will check the answers. So for letter D, root 63 and root 140 divided by root 5 is root 28. When you break it down, that will be 3 root 7 because a pair of 3 came out. And there's, when you break down root 28, a pair of 2 come out. So root 7 is the same. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 root 7. And that's your answer for letter D. And that will conclude the notes for today. Thank you so much for watching.